Hi! In today's video, we'll be learning about list comprehensions in Python. And with the help of Python code, we'll be covering list comprehensions using for loops and if-else, using range function, as well as nested for loops. The concept of list comprehension requires basic knowledge of lists as well as for loops. For your reference, if you want to revisit these concepts, we are adding the links in the description below. Now, we can move to our Python code. So, let's go! Suppose we have a list of numbers and we want to divide every single number by 100 and want to create another list for it. How do we generally do it? We will use a for loop and we will write a code something like this. That is, we will create an empty list and we will run a for loop like for I in scores, and we will write pct.append, and what we will do? We will be doing I divided by 100. This is a normal for loop which we use. However, a more efficient way to write this code is using list comprehensions. If I am using list comprehensions, I will write something like, firstly I will write for I in scores. But notice here I will not write the colon. What I want will come before my for which I will write I divided by 100. That's it. And the very last thing which we need is, we want it a list. That's why over here we will write square bracket, and after this thing in the end we will write the closing square bracket. That is, we will firstly write starting by writing our for loop without the colon, then we will write our output outside it, before it, then we will write the output on the left hand side of it, and we will write this entire thing within a square bracket. That's what a simple syntax of list comprehension is. So let's run this thing. And now if I look at PCT, which was our previous result from line number 2, so we can see both of them have returned the same output. But then the code in this chunk over here, it's a more efficient and a more shorter way to write this code. You know, list comprehensions is not only about for loops. It's also about using an if-else chunk with the for loops. So for this, let's take an example. Suppose we only want to return only those numbers in the list which are more than 50. Then how do we write this thing with list comprehensions? Firstly, I'll copy paste this thing. Here I'll write my condition. That is, if I is greater than 50. Then see, it is returning only 3 numbers because the other 2 numbers were 50 and 12, which was less than 50. However, what to do when there is an else clause as well? For here the syntax slightly changes. Suppose my output is I divided by 100 only when the number is above 50. But then in the else part, I want the number to be returned as 1000. In this code, we can write our if condition like this when there is no else clause. I will again write the square brackets for list comprehensions for I in scores. But now this time I will not write my if else after the for. I will write it before it. So I'll write I divided by 100, which is my output for if I is more than 50. And then I'll write my output as else 1000. Then if we print it, we can see because the first value in our list was 50, that's why it has returned 1000. And similarly for 12, it has returned 1000. But for other values, it has divided the number by 100. You know, using the range function, we can again have our list comprehension. That is, we can write something like for I in range 10, that is our counting from 0 to 9. Now again, we will write the square brackets for list and we will write our output over here. This will create a list of numbers from 0 to 9. You know, in list comprehensions, we can also have multiple for loops. However, the output of that is a list of tuples. Let's understand it with an example. For which, let's say if I want to write for I in range 2, which is taking the value and 0 and 1. And if I write another for loop in a normal language for j in range 5, 7, print I, j. Then this is the combination which we get 0, 5, 0, 6 because I is 0 and then the j is iterating. Similarly, I takes the next value as 1 and then the j is iterating. Now to write this thing in list comprehensions, we will write it as for I in range 2, and without the colon I will write for j in range 5, 7. Here I am returning a tuple, that is I, j. That's why I am writing this I and j in parentheses, which indicates it's a tuple. And because it's a list comprehension, that's why in the end we will use our square brackets. So that's our result for list comprehensions using multiple for loops. So that was all about list comprehensions in Python. If this video was useful to you, do let us know in the comment below. And like and subscribe. It will keep us motivated. Until then, see you soon.